Good evening. From this week's readings, I wanted to touch on a couple of things. One, in the Liberty in Education reading, I was really struck by how many of the concepts that were raised in that document are still salient today. So ideas like students will aspire to the expectations we set upon them, I thought was I've been thinking that through most of my career, that students benefit from learning challenges and socializing with older students, both within reason, which I thought was very, very relevant to today's world. That honors programs that encourage competition both between students and interdepartmental competition are healthy things. My campus or college is thinking about launching a honors program right now for exactly that reason. And that students must be exposed to diversity. He had written about that in terms of large population centers, so I doubt that he meant diversity in the same way that we think of it today exactly, but it certainly is a concept that resonates with what we think about in terms of what's good for students today. So I thought that was very interesting. In terms of the Morrell Acts and how they differ, one way that they differ that came out to me during the Misconceptions About Early Land-Grant Colleges article was that the second act actually included funding, not just land, which could then be sold or put into production to produce value, but could actually had money tied to it. Obviously, we read in an earlier, I think it was Tierney that talked about the fact that the second Morrell Act allowed or included historically black campuses and some of the other southern universities and colleges that were excluded when the first one was passed. So I thought that was, I think those are the differences, at least, that I saw in the readings from this time around. I thought it was very interesting when I read the actual document in the Morrell Act from 1862 that if the state didn't start a college within 5 years, they had to pay the money back, which we don't do a whole lot in the federal government or any government in today's world, where they actually have to follow through and do something and not just pay lip service to it or win political points and then not actually end up following through. So I thought that was a smart thing to include in that original Morrell Act, and wanted to note that. I read the article on industrial education for the Negro, and I was really struck with his defense of teaching industrial arts alongside liberal and moral topics, and making and then using applied learning to drive home the curriculum for all three of those areas. And that's, again, it's really interesting. That's not that far off from what community colleges are all about. We certainly have transfer programs that are designed for students to go directly to university, but we also have applied programs, and then we have sort of this cross-pollination of curriculum that allows students to benefit from both, and I think community colleges do a good job of getting their students out into the working world. So I promised that I would keep these a little shorter. It's 4 minutes in now, so I'll sign off for now and see you all in the chat room. Thanks.